everybody! Welcome to the party for the political revolution against the billionaire class! Thank you all so much for coming. This event is hosted by the Democratic Socialists of America, the DSA. Can you guys hear me okay? Is the mic?
Yeah!
Okay.
Yeah.
My name is Molly. I am your bartender and your MC, and this is Rami.
Hey everyone, I'm also an MC today.
He's the main MC. So you might be wondering what the DSA is. We are a broad, lively socialist organization with 60,000 members across the nation. We are fighting for social and economic justice for working class people and oppressed people, and sometimes that's both. And we link this to the fundamental socialist transformation of society. In short, we are sick and tired of inequality, racism, sexism, heterosexism, and the destruction of our environment, which we believe cannot be solved without also getting rid of this capitalist system. Can I get a We have democratic meetings frequently where we learn from each other, debate with each other, sometimes show up super late and get started super late. But yeah, basically we're trying to build more social movements effectively. If you haven't signed in at the sign-in tables over here, please sign in so we can get you linked in with all the other upcoming events and ways to get involved, canvassing, phone banking, tabling for Bernie, and more. Oh, and if you haven't already gotten a drink, please choose to if you want to. Yeah, you.
Okay. Thank you, Molly. We also just wanted to start by thanking the collaboratory, which has allowed us to have this gathering here tonight. This is Victor here. He's a tireless worker that keeps this place clean and organized, and he's always letting all sorts of activist groups meet here. This is a really cool space with lots of different diverse groups that meet here and have all sorts of like social and cultural and political activities together. So I just really want to give a warm thank you to both the collaboratory for their community building and to Victor in particular. So our first speaker tonight is Sean Scott. He is the state field director. He's the state field director of the Bernie Sanders campaign here in Washington State, and he was a candidate for Seattle City Council as a Democratic Socialist candidate last year in District 4, and he came very close to winning. He got 47% of the vote in spite of an avalanche of corporate money from companies like Amazon. Sean Scott is also an advocacy journalist and a filmmaker and a fellow member and activist in Seattle DSA. So let's give him a warm welcome.
Thanks so much, y'all. So I've been a member of the Seattle Democratic Socialists of America since January 4th, 2017. Not that anybody's counting. And I joined at a time where I think there are a lot of people who are very, very disillusioned with what happened with the 2016 election, but also understood that we were going to have to do a lot to push back in the age of Trump and in the era of Trump against his policies. I think a lot of us have been holding on to this opportunity for 4 years or more as supporters of Bernie Sanders, so I just want to give y'all a hand for making it out tonight and showing that Washington is going to definitely go for Bernie, that we're going to have a decisive victory in this state. We're not going to leave the election in Washington State up to the kinds of, what's a polite word for fuckery? For some of the dastardly confusion that we saw in the state of Iowa. It's important for us to remember how we even got to the point where we were competitive in a state like Iowa, a state that is not, to put it mildly, the most diverse state in the union. a state that skews a little bit older, it was because of the work of our on-the-ground organizers, the field staff in Bernie's campaign, and more than anything else, the fleet of volunteers that traveled down there to make sure that we were able to bring home as many delegates as possible, and also the popular vote from Iowa. So it's important that we have to take a lot of inspiration from them. What we would have seen, I think, is that it was a lot of the organizing that was done at the satellite caucuses. People who had to work twice as hard to vote, people who had to get to the point where they had to overcome some of their disillusionment in a political system that was never meant to work for them in order to stand around in a gymnasium or a high school gym in order to cast those ballots, or rather to stand up for Bernie. And I think that that's something that a lot of us could relate to as far as having to work twice as hard to even be competitive, right? If you're a person of color in this crowd, if you're a trans person in this crowd, if you're disabled, if you're a woman in this crowd, I think you understand. I remember very vividly when my dad gave me the work twice as hard to get half as much as what others have speech. It was at a Burger King in Shoreline in 1992. I have not forgotten it. And I think as socialists, that's something that should be an inspiration for a lot of us, because I think we also have to work twice as hard, right? It's not enough for us to be corporate Republicans and Republicans who are waging a war on women and a war on the environment. We also have to be what Dr. King called liberals and moderates who do not sense the urgency of the moment in the same way that we do. So our fight is definitely an uphill fight. It's a battle that I know that we're prepared for in this state and beyond. The bad news is that 538, which I'm not fond of citing too often on the campaign trail, has said that we are the underdog in 2 of the remaining 48 states. And the front runner in all the rest. So it's going to be about signing up for volunteerships. I know Seattle DSA has been doing a great job pretty much since the time that Bernie announced his candidacy, turning out volunteers every Saturday. In a lot of ways, our campaign is just sort of catching up to the energy that our chapter has been putting out for so long for Bernie Sanders. So I want everybody to make sure that we download the Burn app before we get out of here. That's one of the ways that you get plugged into all the campaign events that volunteers are hosting across the state. We have our campaign office at 1404 East Yesler Way. If you want to sign up to get, or if you want to come through to grab yard signs, if you want to come through to phone bank, we do that Tuesdays and Thursdays. Please come by. It's always a pretty lively environment. And let's win Washington for Bernie Sanders.
Thank you, Sean. So our next speaker is Jesse Hagopian. He is a well-known socialist activist in the city. Jesse teaches at Garfield High School, where I'm also happen to be a student teacher. He teaches ethnic studies and English language arts. He's the editor of Rethinking Schools magazine, which is a great magazine. He's director of the Black Education Masters Student Activist Award and a co-editor of a book called Teaching for Black Lives. He was the recipient of the 2019 Social Justice Teacher of the Year Award from Seattle Public Schools Department of Racial Equity. He was also awarded the 2019 Racial Justice Teacher of the Year Award by the Seattle NAACP Youth Coalition. And his ideas about education and race have been featured on many national TV programs, including HBO, PBS, NBC, and Democracy Now! And finally, he's an activist in the Seattle Educators Association, as well as a caucus, as a member of the rank and file caucus of union members in the Seattle Education Association, which is called Social Equity Educators. So if we could get Jesse up here and give him a warm welcome, I'd appreciate it.
Hey, what's up, Collaboratory? Thanks for coming out, everybody. It is wonderful to be in a room full of socialists. It's even better to be in a room full of socialists whose candidate is about to win the presidency of the United... What? How is this happening? Our socialist plot is coming to fruition. Our plot to make sure everybody has health care. Our plot to make sure that kids come to school fed. Our plot to make sure women have a right to choose. Right? our plot to make sure that we end the war on drugs, the racist war on drugs, the socialist plot is near at hand. And I want to begin by saying, happy Black Lives Matter at School Week to everybody. That's right. If you don't have a kid in the public schools, you might have missed it, but everybody else, for sure, knows that this past school week, every day of the week, I joined thousands of teachers across the country in 40 different cities teaching lessons about the 13 principles of the Black Lives Matter Global Network. So on Monday, I taught lessons in my classroom about loving engagement, empathy, and restorative justice. We taught lessons all week long. On Friday, we ended the week by teaching about black women and being unapologetically black. And we had 4 demands during our week of action. Number 1, we said we want to hire more black teachers, right? We said we want to replace zero tolerance discipline with restorative justice to stop the push out of black and brown youth. We said we want black studies and ethnic studies because every child has the right to learn about their culture and see themselves in the curriculum. And finally, we said that we want to fund counselors and not cops in our schools. That's because 1.6 million children in the United States go to a school with a police officer but not a counselor. Okay? And if you add to that social workers and librarians and nurses to that, and school psychologists, the number is 14 million children that go to a school in America that has a police officer that's there ready to punish them and push them into the school to prison pipeline, but doesn't have the basic necessities to take care of the well-being of our youth. Right? That's why we built this movement all week long. And not everybody liked the movement. I want to tell you somebody who did not like what we did. The head of the Boston Police Union sent a letter to the Boston Teachers Union president urging her to withdraw their support for Black Lives Matter at School Week. He said, quote, vilifying those who serve the public as police officers only increases distrust and puts police and citizens at risk of increased violence. So he's accusing our movement that's about supporting black youth and letting them see themselves in their curriculum as putting you all at risk for violence, right? It's absolutely sickening. But there was somebody else whose voice was much louder in support of Black Lives Matter at School Week, and that was, in fact, this week, Bernie Sanders unequivocally sent out a tweet saying he stands with this movement, that we can't achieve the promise of America without racial justice in our schools. So I want to just end by saying Bernie Sanders has caused me quite a problem. Because my whole identity is in question all of a sudden. I've spent my life being a black activist who's been fighting against institutional racism, against neoliberalism, against all forms of oppression, and against the capitalist system itself. And that's often put me at the margins of society in many ways. But now I have to rethink my identity because being a teacher, I'm part of the profession that has donated the most to Bernie Sanders' campaign. And being a person of color, actually, Bernie Sanders polls higher with people of color than white people in this country, so we can rip up the Bernie bro myth and look at the statistics. What did I hear? He got 300% more people of color voting for him in Iowa, right? Whatever it was a lot more that helped push him over the top, right? And it's just exhilarating to see that he is speaking to the issues that matter to folks of color, and that's why they're supporting him, right? When he demands an end to the racist war on drugs, that's why he's pulling us in, right? And the exact opposite is happening for people like Pete Buttigieg. You might have seen the Onion article today that said he got his highest campaign donor from a black person who was walking by the table and flicked a coin in the campaign cup. But no one is speaking forthrightly to the issues that impact black and brown people, the issues of housing, the issues of tripling Title I funding to schools in poverty that are serving predominantly black and brown kids like Bernie Sanders is doing. And that's why his campaign is on the ascendancy, right, in communities across the country. Right? Absolutely. So I just want to say that, I just want to end by saying that I think it is not only Bernie Sanders' ability to connect with so many people on the issues that are so urgent in our lives, but it's his courage to call out the main problem that we face, which is the system of capitalism itself that reduces us all to profits and widgets rather than human beings with hopes and dreams. And he doesn't have a problem not only calling out that system, but saying that there is an alternative. That we don't have to just say this is the best we can do. We can build an alternative, and that is actually, forthrightly, he says, democratic socialism. And the fact that he can say that and is attracting so many people is an inspiration to me. And I think it's clear that we no longer have to settle for politics as usual. We don't have to settle for a rapist and a sexual harasser in the White House, right? We don't have to settle for the fossil fuel industry controlling the policies around the environment. And we don't have to settle for a criminal justice system ran by criminals that wants to warehouse black and brown people. And in our own city, they're getting ready to open a $200 million youth jail this month during Black History Month. They want to get ready to open that jail. And we know that for too many of us, this system doesn't work, and that it's time to join together in a common struggle for a whole different society, one that's built on solidarity, a society that's built on human need, a society that is built on the principles of socialism. So thanks everybody for having me.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Just a quick announcement. We want to capture this beautiful, large event and post it on social media. So we have a photographer here that's going to be taking photos. If for any reason you don't want to be have photos taken of you, just come see our photographer here, and he will make sure not to take photographs of you. Yeah, thank you. And so our next speaker is a brave young woman named Rebecca Parson, who has taken it upon herself to run as a Democratic Socialist for U.S. Congress from the Tacoma area. As she says on her website, as an LGBTQ woman, a tenant, and a small business owner, I know what it's like to have your voice ignored. And she also boldly states on her website, in one of the richest and most progressive states in the country, people shouldn't be sick, struggling, and dying because they can't afford to live. Well, we couldn't agree more. Please join me in welcoming Rebecca Parson.
Hello, give a shout if you can hear me. My name is Rebecca Parson, and I'm running for U.S. Congress in Washington's 6th Congressional District. That includes a little over half of Tacoma, all of Kitsap County, and all of the Olympic Peninsula. I'm a proud member of Tacoma DSA, and I've been endorsed by Tacoma DSA and West Sound DSA. I'm lucky enough to have 2 DSA chapters in my district because it's so big. And as I've gone around the district talking to people and finding out about their struggles, It's been really hard to hear what people are going through. There are people who are struggling to pay for their meds. I just canvassed in Tacoma today. A woman is, the only income she receives is $750 a month from Social Security. Her rent is $650 a month. She gets food stamps, and then she's supposed to pay for everything else with those $100 left over. So I don't know if any of you can imagine trying to pay for all of that, all your utilities, internet, cell phone, laundromat, all of it with $100, but that's what she has to do. And it frustrates me so much because it's so unnecessary. We can afford to bail out Wall Street. We can afford to invade other countries endlessly for oil, to enrich the 1% and the military-industrial complex. But this woman, this grandmother in Tacoma, another grandma in Kitsap County, they can barely afford to live. They can't afford their meds. It's wrong. And what really especially frustrates me about it is that when me and my constituents write our representative and ask for solutions like Medicare for All, the Green New Deal, we just get back these form responses, and it's almost no better than writing Comcast, asking them, please don't raise it this time. And then the response, dear valued customer, we're not changing shit, love Comcast. That's what it's like getting a letter back from Representative Derek Kilmer. He calls himself a national leader on getting money out of politics, but he's taken $3 million from corporate PACs. Possibly needless to say, he does not support Medicare for All, the Green New Deal, or national rent control. I do. I'm the only candidate in the race who supports those policies. I was one of the first candidates in the country to call for national rent control, and I'm the only candidate in the race who does not take corporate PAC or lobbyist money. And I'm running because I am just completely sick of politicians who say, I hear you, your concerns. Gosh, I'm so sorry, I wish I could do something, but this is the best I can do. But those people, their gosh, I'm sorry is not enough. They need to support Medicare for All, the Green New Deal, and a homes guarantee with national rent control. And what I see when we have these policies, this entire suite of progressive policies, is a society where we say that you are not defined by the economic value you produce. You are not a cog in the machine who exists solely to make profit for your bosses and the 1%. You are a human being. You deserve health care. You deserve housing and an education. And we are going to enact all of these things because I want to live, and I believe you all want to live, in a society where that grandmother in Tacoma does not receive $750 a month while Jeff Bezos makes $1 trillion fucking dollars a second. And what these policies mean to me is saying this is a society where we express our love through these policies. We say to you, you are a human being. It does not matter how much economic value you produce because we are going to take care of you. Because you're alive, we care about you. We're going to take care of you. Thank you. I am so excited for Bernie Sanders to win. Because when he's in the White House and I'm in Congress, we are going to fight for this entire suite of progressive policies to get passed. I believe that 2020 is going to be the year. We had the hell of Trump, Donald Trump, the hell of all the problems that caused him, because he's not the sole problem, he's just the figurehead. And in 2020, we are going to start a new progressive era with a progressive Congress, a progressive president, and we are finally going to get in place universal health care for all. Bernie Sanders.
Thank you, Rebecca. So if you want to support Rebecca, please do go to RebeccaForWA.com, RebeccaForWA.com. So as many of you know, in the last couple years, Amazon has started to weigh into trying to control our local politics. They spent a record amount $1.5 million to try to swing the city council to be a more pro-corporate conservative city council, which backfired actually. And a year before that, they bullied the city council into repealing the tax that they had just passed on Amazon and Seattle's richest corporations. So DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, we're part of a coalition that's part of a growing campaign to tax Amazon and Seattle's richest corporations to fund a green new Seattle. When we pass this tax this year, this will fund the construction of thousands of new homes. It will retrofit homes to conserve energy. It will create union jobs. And hopefully also we may be able to include providing free transit. We're still working out some of the details. Our next speaker is from Whatcom County, and he's fighting for the very same stuff up in Whatcom County in the Bellingham area that we're fighting for here in the Seattle area. Our next speaker is Jason Call, and he's running for U.S. Congress in Whatcom County. I hope you check out his website, callforcongress.com, where he demands abolishing homelessness and housing insecurity with a housing guarantee, fund social housing as part of the Green New Deal to build at least 10 million green union-built homes, and together in Whatcom County and King County, we will build a movement to provide housing for all.
Wow, what a crowd. I love this. You guys ready to make this election cycle the year that we normalize socialism? So I'm going to do a slight correction here. I'm actually from Snohomish County, but my district, Congressional District 2, goes from Snohomish County all the way up to Whatcom County. It does include Bellingham, Whidbey Island, and the San Juan Islands. I was an organizer for Bernie in 2016, so I cannot express to you how happy I am. He stepped back in the race, and we are going to win this thing, and I think everybody in this room knows we are going to win this thing this year. I've been an anti-war activist for 30 years. When I was a sophomore in college, we invaded Iraq in Desert Storm, and I got out in the streets and I protested that war, and I've been protesting war ever since. I was a public high school math teacher for almost 20 years. I was that guy who handed out the opt-out forms to my students to make sure that the military did not get their personal information to start calling them and say, come and join our war machine. I'll tell you a little bit about the guy I'm running against, okay? His name's Rick Larson. He's been there seeking a 10th term, okay? Rebecca and I could argue about who is the worst Democrat in Washington State. I think we can both agree that they're both pretty fucking awful. My guy has taken $14.5 million over the last 18 years, over 10 million of that from corporate PACs. So, we put him on the spot. We said, Rick Larson, you going to stop taking corporate PAC money? And what was his answer? Of course it's no. That's where he gets most of his funding, 75% of his funding from corporate PACs. He is in the pocket of Boeing. He is in the pocket of the military-industrial complex. We are going to put an end to that this year. I am excited to be part of a progressive wave of candidates that is running all across the country. You guys know Debbie Wasserman Schultz is being challenged in Florida. Right? Nancy Pelosi is being challenged. This is the year we are going to kick the bums out. We are going to have a progressive Congress, and we are going to be there to support Bernie Sanders and progressive policies. And I like to say we are going to bring the antis to Congress. Anti-war, right? Anti-imperialism, anti-racism, anti-capitalism, and anti-fascism. Thank you very much. Talkcongress.com. Please volunteer for my campaign. My campaign manager is the very tall guy over there with my campaign shirt on. Talk to him if you want to volunteer for my campaign. Appreciate it very much. Solidarity.
Thank you, Jason. So, I'm super excited to announce my revolutionary comrade and sister, Harris. Harris is super inspiring to me. She's a very courageous woman and a relentless organizer. Especially in the last few weeks, she's been really busting her tail off on the Tax Amazon campaign. She's one of the 3 co-chairs of the Tax Amazon Committee for Seattle DSA. And she's also an Amazon warehouse worker where she helps produce the profits every day that Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world, uses for space travel. These warehouses are essentially sweatshops where workers are controlled by high-tech surveillance, where workers don't have time for bathroom breaks, and some of them have had to resort to peeing in bottles because they don't have time for bathroom breaks. Amazon also has other vicious anti-labor policies, blocking workers from trying to organize a union to get higher wages. They also recently instituted a gag order on Amazon employees criticizing Amazon's failure to reduce its carbon emissions fast enough. These kinds of policies from one of the biggest corporations in America needs to change, and having Harris working at Amazon, armed with the ideas of Karl Marx and Rosa Luxemburg, will surely help. So we're super proud to have Harris here to share her ideas with us tonight. Please join me in welcoming Harris.
Before I start, I think we should send a very loud message of solidarity to the 8,000 workers at Swedish who went on a 3-day strike. They were locked out by Swedish, and we, all of us here, we give them our full solidarity tonight. So as Tommy said, my name is Harris. I'm a member of the Democratic Socialists of America, DSA. I work in an Amazon warehouse, and I'm also the co-chair of DSA's Tax Amazon Committee. Activists from DSA organized this event tonight, and we are very, very happy to have you all here partying for the political revolution. DSA has been on the streets week after week, door knocking, phone banking, campaigning for Bernie Sanders. And do you know why? It's because there's a political revolution underfoot. It's calling for Medicare for all, because people die without it. Because people need gender-affirming health care. Because too many people have lost their homes, their jobs, and their loved ones without it. It's calling to cancel student debt, because it's absurd to live in a society where people are financially punished for getting an education and getting vital skills that build our society into all that it can be. It's calling to end deportations and abolish ICE, because not one single person should ever go through the trauma and have their rights stripped away. It's calling to rebuild a formidable labor movement where unions are the organic expression of workers' democracy and the place where we go to get our expectations raised and then together fight for them. It's calling for absolutely nothing less than what it will take to transform our economy into 100% renewable energy with high-paid union work for every affected worker and community member. Because we are done. We are done gambling with the world and our lives on behalf of the fossil fuel industry. Our political revolution has already begun, and Pete Buttigieg and Joe Biden are running away as fast as they possibly can. But our revolution goes far beyond what we will win in 2020, which is a lot. We are fighting to build a socialist movement to fundamentally change society, end capitalism, end the system based off of profits for the few, and establish a society based on justice, equity, and solidarity on an international scale. How many of you heard last night Joe Biden trying to attack Bernie Sanders at the start of the debate? Were people watching? He tried to attack Bernie for being an unapologetic Democratic socialist. And what he said is that he claimed this would be bad branding. I don't know about you guys, but in my opinion, I don't think Joe Biden is in much of a position to be giving advice at the moment. The truth is, working class people are smart. And going through the same motions over and over isn't going to cut it for us. That's what Biden proposes, and it's what Buttigieg proposes as well. If we want to get rid of Trump, we need a clear-cut break from the policies that led to Trump's victory. We need a break with corporate politicians once and for all. We need a break from middle-of-the-road policies like Medicare for all who want it. We have learned together through struggle that the Democratic Party is not a tool to fight for working class people. We need to build towards a working class party with a socialist program, our own party, where we fight for our own interests. We need a break, yes, cheer for that. We need a break with the whole system of capitalism. This isn't some pie-in-the-sky talk I'm saying over here. People are smart, as I said, and the system isn't working for people, and they know it. And it's up to us, democratic socialists, and people fighting for working and oppressed people to provide a real alternative. And that's why we have to start right now. That's why I'm part of DSA. I've watched Cardi B's endorsement of Bernie Sanders possibly 100 times. And Bernie's new Bob Dylan cover ad like at least another 20. And my heart is very much in this movement to elect Bernie Sanders. You guys should watch those videos. I also think we need to be prepared, though, to go further than what Bernie Sanders is talking about right now. If we're going to build our movement to win Medicare for all, to win a Green New Deal, to end mass incarceration truly, then we can be sure that we will face the most brutal resistance from corporate America, which is the strongest capitalist ruling class on this planet. And we see a glimpse of that already in this campaign. And we're not going to win by playing nice with these people. We have 10 years, as so many people have mentioned, to transition to a carbon neutral economy. We can absolutely do that, but not without tackling the power of the fossil fuel industry. We need to take them on, and we need to take these companies and their wealth, the wealth accumulated by the Koch brothers and oil barons, and we need to put it into democratic public ownership, which means you and me and the workers of those companies get to make decisions about the world in our own interests. Here in Seattle, we are building the power of working class people. We are fighting to tax Amazon and big business to fund vital public infrastructure like green, affordable social housing and green justice programs that begin to take our city in the direction of a Seattle Green New Deal. DSA plans to move forward together with many, many other organizations in this city with a ballot initiative to do just that. And we will campaign as well for Orca passes for all. Now, all of that seems pretty logical, right? We have a giant global problem, a city with a tremendous amount of wealth, and the capacity to lead the world in the direction of a Green New Deal. But what's the response of the local Democratic Party establishment to just the start of our movement? Do people know? Democratic Party politicians like Mayor Jenny Durkin and Dow Constantine, I guess you heard, they are pulling the strings on behalf of big business to make sure that politicians in Olympia move forward with a bill that would ban Seattle from passing a tax on big business. We need to stop that, and we will stop that. We will fight to defend our right to tax big business. We will fight to win this ballot initiative. And above all, we will use this struggle to build working class power and a socialist movement that goes for the whole world. Join us, please. Join the Tax Amazon Committee of DSA. Join DSA. Come build the world that we want to live in. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Hey, it's really crowded in here, so I just want to appeal to everyone to please scoot forward, especially the people in the front. If you can scoot forward, it'll make space for people to walk and go to the bathroom if they need to and all that. And so, I just have a short introduction for our next speaker. Next, we welcome to the stage parenting lifestyle coach Burl Dirkman. You can see him every Wednesday at Joke Tellers Union at the Clockout Lounge. Give him a welcome to him. Come on now! Let's get over here with that news, guys! What's going on, y'all? How's it going? Yeah! We made it! We're here, look at you! Smiling? Alright, good deal, okay. Good evening, y'all. As the man said, my name is Burl Dirkman, and I'm a parenting lifestyle coach. And basically what that means is I've devoted my entire life to going around spreading the good news about the healing powers of babies. Now, just by round of applause, how many people here have a baby currently? How many's got? There's one. Okay, about 3. All right. Well, I promise this will be relatable. By round of applause, how many people here know a baby? You see one on your wall, down at the corner store. So you see one down at the park every afternoon. You say, oh, that's that one with the little swoop of hair. Oh yeah, I remember that one. Babies enhance our lives. They're these turbines of pure innocence and positivity and healing power. And so that's the main thing I do is I go all around talking about babies. I do it all over King County and down into Pierce and a little tiny bit of Kitsap. So that's of course I also do some light carpentry on the side and sharpen saw blades. So if you need that, talk to me. But I'm not a politics expert. That's why it's weird. It's kind of strange they invited me here. I don't know much about politics. Never really have. Of course, I grew up in a very conservative environment. I grew up at the United States Marine Corps Recruit Depot in Parris Island, South Carolina. My father was a drill sergeant, and my mother was also a drill sergeant. So I grew up in a very strict, authoritarian, repressive household. I was potty trained with firecrackers, so had to wrestle my brothers for the good piece of casserole. And of course I got 3 brothers. The oldest one, his name is Birch. He was named after John Birch, a United States intelligence officer who was killed in China at the end of World War II. They eventually made an organization, named it after him. And then my next brother down, his name is Barry, after Barry Goldwater, the 1964 Republican candidate for president. And then, of course, my name is Burl. I was named after the dense and knotty growth that sometimes forms on a tree. And then my kid brother, his name is Benji, after the famous dog. And he's actually the politics expert in our family now. He lives in a anarcho-primitivist commune in Central Washington. They briefly kicked me out for being a narc when I was visiting on Thanksgiving. Of course, they don't follow the regular imperialist calendar, so they didn't even know it was Thanksgiving. This is all just by way of introduction. You'll settle into it. Some of y'all are like, what are they doing here now? But you look at them people on the stairs. They got a good spot up there. So I've been asked to come up here to talk about Bernie. The reason why we're here, and like I said, I'm not a politics expert. There's only a couple things I know about, and that's the healing powers of babies and power tools. I know a lot about power tools. I said, how can I take the knowledge I've got to give these people something that can help them learn, to understand why they should support Bernie more. And so if it's okay with you guys, I'd like to share what I came up with tonight. Yeah. So as some of y'all know, I love the Makita brand of power tools. You guys remember Makita? It's one of my favorite things. Okay, my favorites, it goes number 1, babies, of course. Number 2 would be old dogs, like really old, stinky old dogs. Number 3 is a tie. It would have to be Creedence Clearwater Revival's Chronicle Volume 1. And in a tie for 3rd place went the Tao Te Ching. And then, okay, there's something here for everyone. And then number 4 would be Makita
Makita brand power tools. All right, so what I did is I thought about, why do I like this guy? It kind of freaks me out having him back there, by the way. He's like, I feel like I'm going to just lose control and hug him. And then mess up the cardboard. So what I'm going to give you guys, because now that you understand how important the Makita tools are to me, is I'm going to explain to you the ways in which Bernie is like a Makita half-inch cordless power drill. So, can we all, okay, you see what I'm doing here. All right. You figured it out. All right, number one. Both of them are instantly recognizable. When I see that teal blue, Makita blue, I said, that's quality, right? And of course, when I see that bald head with the arms waving around, I'm like, there he goes, man, that's my guy. Number two, they're both honest, aren't they? Yeah. They're both honest. The Makita, when you see a Makita, you know you've got a driver designed to deliver maximum power in a compact and durable tool. Yeah. When you see Bernie, you know you've got a man who's devoted his life to fighting for the working class. That's right. The Makita and Bernie, they're both hardworking, they're long-lasting. And they've been doing it for a long time. Let me give you an example. In 1978, Makita released the first rechargeable nickel-cadmium cordless drill available on the consumer market. That same year, Bernie Sanders produced a 30-minute documentary about Eugene V. Debs. I'm going to get a little deeper into the history if that's all right. Please do. 1981, Makita launched the AN5000 pneumatic nailer and the AC6001 air compressor, the first compressed air tools available on the market. In 1981, that was the same year that Bernie became mayor of Burlington. So they're on parallel tracks. Next one. The Makita and Bernie are friends of the worker. The Makita, with its ergonomic grip and impeccable balance and durability, it's the most reliable quarter-inch, half-inch power drill on the market. You can build a shed with Makita in 8 hours that'll last you 100 years. That's right. And Bernie, same way. He's a friend of the worker. He's trying to get us all health care. Yeah. And I don't want to get too much into his opponents because, like I said, I'm not an expert, but I once had a boss myself who told us, we're going to get you guys all health care soon. And then we said, all right, let's do it. And then he said, well, it's actually going to be about 3 years if you guys are still around. So, I don't mean to go negative.
Build a shed, not bootage edge.
Finally, I got a couple more here. Next one. They change with the times, don't they? Bernie, he's an old guy. He changes with the times. He figures it out. Same with the Makita. For example, I brought examples, y'all. I'm not gonna. Receipts, the kids say, yeah. In 2005, Makita unveiled the first lithium-ion battery tool. And it revolutionized the power tool industry. In 2019, Bernie got a brand new robotic heart that will allow him to live forever. So if you follow these things, Bernie is just a clear choice. You just got to go for this guy. He's there for us. We're out there working, busting our humps, right? Bernie's there for you. The way I see it, the Makita and the Bernie are both there to do one thing. Drive home the point that the working class, and excuse my language, is getting screwed. Right? Come on now. So Bernie, support him, send him some money. He says he's happy with $20. I can handle that. Thank y'all for listening. I've been Burl Dirkman, and most importantly, I want you to remember to feel your feelings, cry when you need to, and keep them babies smiling. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Burl Dirkman. So, DSA has helped elect over 100 DSA-endorsed candidates to office around the country. Most notably, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Rashida Tlaib. A few of these candidates ran as independents from corporate cash and independents from the Democratic Party. But the very first independent socialist that's been elected to a city council of a major city in decades was right here in Seattle, and that's Kshama Sawant. Kshama has helped lead so many fights for social justice, not only the historic $15 minimum wage, but also more funding for women's shelters, changing Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day, helping block the Seattle police bunker, and many other things. Unfortunately, I regret to tell you that she has to send her apologies and will not be able to make it tonight, and we're super sorry about that. But we will be continuing to support the very positive role that she is playing as the leading figure in the movement to tax Amazon. And she's also fighting right now in City Hall to get a ban passed on evictions of tenants during winter months. She will be at the Tax Amazon conference tomorrow from 12 to 4 p.m. And I want to urge anyone who's available to please go to that conference tomorrow. We're going to be continuing to build the movement to tax Amazon and other corporations to fund a Green New Seattle. That's at Washington Hall. So I just got word that we have a replacement for Kshama Sawant. So actually, that's great. We're happy to have someone from the same political party, Socialist Alternative. Please join me in welcoming Ty Moore.
Well, I'm not really a replacement for Kshama Sawant, but Kshama, unfortunately couldn't be here tonight. My name is Ty. I'm an organizer with Socialist Alternative, and we wanted to first just express our huge solidarity with the efforts that everybody here put to bring this amazing event together. Yes. And we want to say that, Bernie has done amazing over the last few weeks. There is a possibility of winning the first socialist president of the United States. And of course, we have to go all out. Socialists, progressive, trade unionists, working class people, we have to go all out to make sure we win the most decisive victory here in Washington State possible. That's right. Yes. And of course, it's linked to the fight. Here in Seattle, the fight that we have to tax Amazon and big business is intimately linked up with the fight that all of us are waging on a national level to make sure that the billionaires who have dominated our society, dominated our economy, don't do that anymore. That we need to tax them, and in the long run, we need to make sure that they don't exist. We need to make sure that working people run this country. So Rami already announced it, but the main thing I wanted to urge people, we have to do all we can to get Bernie elected, but also there's a serious threat right now in Seattle that, how many people have heard about this House bill that is being passed to raise taxes in King County, right? People have heard about that. It's a good thing. We want to raise taxes on big business, countywide, statewide, nationally. But there's also a threat that, that the legislature could put a preemption clause. Now that's a fancy way of saying a ban on cities being allowed to raise taxes on big business. Have you guys heard about that yet? That's the poison pill that Amazon and a whole bunch of other corporations are trying to insert in that. And this is going to happen in the next few weeks if we're not vigilant and we don't fight back. We have to put maximum pressure on our state legislatures, here in Seattle, to make sure they vote against this and take a clear stand. So tomorrow's organizing conference that Rami already announced is going to be an important place where we can get organized to figure out how to fight back. There's going to be a demonstration in Olympia on Wednesday if folks can make it. So stay tuned. Check out Tax Amazon Facebook page, and I really welcome everybody's help and assistance with that. So fight for Bernie, fight to tax Amazon, make the digital revolution happen. Thank
Thank you, Ty. And if anyone wants to sign up for the campaign to tax Amazon, there's a table back there that's being staffed by folks from Socialist Alternatives, so please do sign up at one of those tables back there, the one on this side. Our next speaker is Shahid Buttar. As many of you know, Nancy Pelosi is the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, and she's moved heaven and earth to prevent a vote on numerous progressive bills in the Congress. But meanwhile, she's passed historic, massive budgets for the military, and she also passed the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, which is NAFTA 2.0. And this needs to change, and our next speaker, Shahid Buttar, is running for Congress to change this.
Woo! Yes!
Shahid's campaign is not accepting corporate cash like Nancy Pelosi is. He's a Muslim, he's a longtime grassroots activist from the movements against the Iraq War, from the Occupy Wall Street movement. His campaign also has a number of endorsements from Our Revolution East Bay to San Francisco DSA and the People for Bernie. And recently, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said that in most other countries, she would not be in the same party as Joe Biden. She talked about the House of Representatives, which has been controlled now for over a year by the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party does have a majority of the U.S. House of Representatives. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez recently said, quote, "We can't even get a floor vote on Medicare for all. Not even a floor vote that gets voted down." And then she went on to say, "We can't even get a vote on it." So this is not a left party. There are left members inside the Democratic Party that are working to try to make that shift happen. And Shahid is trying to solve this problem by running to unseat Pelosi. So I want to thank... So Shahid is in the San Francisco Bay Area, so we have a video statement from him that will be showing up here. And I also want to thank Edward, who's been stepping up recently to put on, he's one of the many volunteers that helped to organize this and put this video together. So let's give a thanks to Edward.
What up, Seattle? I'm Shahid Buttar in San Francisco. So great to be with you. I wish I could in person. I'm sorry I can't make it today, but I'm really excited to join you remotely. I'm so excited by all the work that you're doing in Seattle, all the work you're doing here in San Francisco, all the work that our movement is doing across our country. And I see it embodied in our next president. As a Muslim American immigrant, I'm very proud to support our first Jewish president, and I'm very proud to stand together with him in promoting a vision of human rights that unites all of humanity, that extends not only human rights to the border where they are in crisis, but beyond that to include our basic human necessities, including healthcare, housing, and food. We have a bright future when we're able to get on the other side of our immediate crises. Electing Bernie Sanders is the very first thing we can do to start down the longer road that we need towards collective liberation. And I'm excited to walk that path with you. I'm excited to join in Congress some of my allies in Washington State, Rebecca and Josh. Good luck to you. What happened over the last month to the primary. We're at about the same phase. Our primary here in San Francisco is March 3rd. I'll be running against corporate Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. We have a jungle primary, so I only need to take second, which I'm very confident in doing. And in November, we look forward to liberating San Francisco's voice in Congress so that in the House. I know that's what Josh is aiming to do. I know that's what Rebecca is aiming to do. And I know that's what all of us across the country in the movement, particularly in DSA, are aiming to do. And I want to just offer two thoughts. One, in the next month, we have an enormous, I dare say, world historical opportunity to advance justice, to advance sustainability, and to defend the future against our failed predatory corporate past. It's going to take a lot of phone calls, a lot of texts, a lot of doors to knock on. This is a time for all of us to dig deep. It's an incredibly important month for us to all find every minute that we can to be active. Second, beyond the election, I think that you all in DSA get this, but just to make it inescapably clear, the electoral sphere can only begin to meet our aspirations. We all have to do so much more than just vote. And everything we do to get Bernie in office and to get Josh and Rebecca and me and our colleagues and allies running across the country in office, all that matters, and holding us accountable is just as important. We, and Bernie would say himself, we need to make sure not only that we get him into the White House, but that we propel his agenda through the election, that we send him to Washington with a mandate, that we mow down the obstacles that impede his vision, like a corporate speaker of the House. I'm very excited to make sure that healthcare is a human right. I'm very excited to dismantle mass incarceration and the Pentagon, to abolish both ICE and the CIA. Much love from San Francisco. Over to now. Peace.
All right. Hey, everybody. My name's Whitney. I'm an educator, and just like Jesse, we just got done with a really successful Empowering Black Lives Matter at Schools Week, which is super important, also for organizing our union. I think we've heard some amazing speakers tonight. And I just want to start off, Taylor Elizabeth is going to be playing later. Let's hear it. She's really makes some fantastic music, and I just wanted to quote one of her songs, Daisies, here, where she says, "Put our faith up against all hate. Do you believe that we're something great? You make me feel like it ain't too late." And I feel like that really captures the mood tonight, and the mood around Bernie Sanders, and the mood around making a political revolution against the billionaire class in this country. So I'm up here real quick. We're gonna have a couple more speakers, then we move into the music, and it's gonna be fantastic. And I'm up here to ask for money. That's not always the most comfortable thing. Of course, like, capitalism pits us against each other by paying differential wages to people, keeping some people impoverished, other people with extra hurdles in order to achieve just even the basic standards of living and dignity that we all need and deserve. And that's why we're here tonight, right? So we're going to ask for money in a way that I hope doesn't make anyone feel ashamed that they don't have any money. I mean, I work with kids who show up homeless to school every day. Like, this is a dire situation, and if anybody can't donate, don't worry about it, not a problem. But we also need money, right? Because we are going up against the most powerful interests that there are, and we know that it's not that one election is not enough. When these elections end, when there's a more, what Sean Scott said, a nice word for fuckery, at these different Iowa races, we are going to have to remain organized. And that's what the DSA is about. It's a broad tent organization that is about bringing people together. We helped bring a coalition together on the Tax Amazon initiative, and that's really exciting. We brought folks together today. We've sent people out to Iowa. We're sending people out to New Hampshire, to all these states, to every single state. And if the DNC ends up taking the popular vote away from Bernie Sanders at the convention, we're going to need to stay organized to make a new party for political revolution.
That's right!
So who here can donate $27,000 tonight? Did no billionaires show up? I would have thought with the amount of billionaires and millionaires we have in King County, that some of them would have shown up tonight. I guess they're not with us. So we'll have to go with some more manageable numbers. And I want to start high. I want us to push ourselves because we've got a lot of work to do this year, and we only get, I think the climate scientists say, about 9 years left. So who is able to donate maybe like $200 tonight to make sure that we can send people to California and to Oregon and to help the political revolution in Nevada? We've got people that are going to come around. And, yeah, right, let's hear it, let's hear it. All right, let's hear it, yeah. All right, oh, we got 500. Let's hear it, let's hear it. I'm a paraeducator. That's like a lot of money to come for me, and that's wonderful. So I'm not going to keep us too much longer. So who can donate $100 to help with the political revolution in Arizona? We're sending people to make sure we help with all these campaigns, as well as trying to tax Amazon this year. So we've got 49 left. Who can donate $50 for every state that Bernie Sanders is going to win? Who can donate $50? Do you have anyone who wants to volunteer for that? All right, let's hear it. And now, of course, I think everyone knows what number I'm going to say next. Who could donate $27 tonight, the DSA, to help? I'll join in on that. Can anyone join me on it? I see 1, 2. Keep your hands up, because we got people coming around with card readers and all that, so please keep your hands up. Make sure to find them. There are only so many, but I think there are about 5 people coming around. And who can donate $15 for the $15 minimum wage that we won here in Seattle and expand nationwide with Bernie Sanders? All right. All right, and with all that, thank you so much for sticking with me. I know that the money stuff is not always the most comfortable, but y'all were amazing, fantastic. We can get back to a couple of speakers. We can get to the music, get to the fun, get to the party, and then the political revolution. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Whitney. So our next speaker who's running for Congress as a socialist is actually a truck driver. And we need more ordinary working class folks stepping up and running for office. So I'm excited to introduce Joshua Collins. If you go to joshua2020.com, you can find a very long list of demands, great demands. But at the top of the list is abolish the CIA, and then after that is end all wars. So it's really refreshing to see someone taking on the imperialist policies of the United States. And let's be honest, these policies have been enforced by not only the Republican Party, but also the Democratic Party as well. And so it's really urgently needed that we have more socialists running like Joshua. Joshua's also part of the Rose Caucus, which is a group of socialist candidates that are running for office across the country who recently formed an alliance to challenge the establishment, corporate politicians who control the Democratic Party. On Joshua's website it says, quote, Congress is full of lawyers, investment bankers, and corporate consultants. It's basically a playground for the 1% who have no empathy or understanding of our lives. Regular working people should be represented by individuals who live our lives and those who know what paycheck to paycheck feels like. So we're happy to have Joshua here today and hopefully in Congress in January.
When I was a kid, my mom would always tell me to be nice to the waitresses and cashiers. She said, be nice to them, and they'll do their best to take care of you. Be mean to them, and they'll spit in your food. I didn't know it then, but this was the beginning of me eventually forming class consciousness. I had my first real job at 15. I spent 10 years learning what it means to work for a living. As a service worker, I was overworked, underpaid, sexually harassed and assaulted and retaliated against. As a blue-collar worker, my safety was always an afterthought. My injuries were my own responsibility. It didn't matter to my bosses if, as a result of my working conditions, I got back problems, knee problems, and other chronic injuries. And I had to work through it all, and that made everything worse. I basically sold my body to the trucking industry for $20 an hour. The capitalist class doesn't care about us. We're all just human-shaped dollar signs to them. Our worth is determined by how much money they can make off us. Our labor is our currency, and it's our life force. If you're well educated, an hour of your labor is worth a decent amount of money, depending on how much profit they can generate from it. If you're like me, and you're uneducated with numerous health issues, an hour of your life force is a little bit less valuable. And if you're old or disabled and can't work, you can't sell your life force to capitalists, so you don't matter to them. If you use your life force to take care of a child or a person with a disability, you don't matter to them either.
That's right. Right.
I'm tired of living in a society that measures a person's worth by how much profit they can generate for the capitalist class. I want to live in a moral society. I want a society that where no humans are treated like gods, and all people are treated like humans. One where we all treat one another like brothers and sisters rather than competitors in a race for our survival. I'm a 26-year-old autistic truck driver, and I've got more in common with a 50-year-old black construction worker than I do with Jeff Bezos.
That's right!
I've got more in common with a 16-year-old transgender Starbucks cashier than I do with Bill Gates. I have more in common with a farm laborer in Guatemala than I do with Mark Zuckerberg. I want to live in a world where people recognize that reality. That all working class people have something in common, and that thing is struggle. For some, the struggle is made much harder by things like disabilities, race, gender, sexual orientation, or national origin. And those of us who are in this struggle with a degree of privilege need to recognize that we cannot end our struggle without combating the struggles of those with less privilege. If we want an equal society, a moral society, a just society, it will take unity. It'll take solidarity. Climate change has brought before us the biggest threat humanity has ever faced. And if we let them, the rich will ride it out in underground bunkers or in a new society they're building on Mars. They'll keep digging the oil out of the ground while our planet burns. They've already shown that they're incapable of stopping. They don't care about us enough to end the for-profit healthcare system. They don't care about us enough to guarantee housing as a human right. And so they damn sure don't care about us enough to stop climate change. My name is Joshua Collins. I'm running for Congress in Washington's 10th district. I'm running to represent the working class people in my district, but I'm also running to represent the people outside of it, including those beyond our nation's borders. Healthcare and housing are national issues. Climate change is a global issue. The only way we can stop it is with a global movement of the working class. And I'd like to see that movement happen. And that starts with getting Bernie Sanders elected and sending socialists to Congress with him. It's time for the workers of the world to unite. Please go to my website. It's joshua2020.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua. So I just want to make sure everyone here knows just how little time we have left to visit our neighbors, talk with our coworkers, and convince our families to vote for Bernie. Does anyone know when the primary election is in Washington State? March 10th. Right, March 10th, exactly 1 month from now. And does anyone know when the ballots will be mailed out and voters will...
February 21st!
2 weeks from now, our ballots are going out in the mail. Most people don't know that. So we got to let people know this election is coming up. In 2 weeks, they're going to receive their ballots. They got to return their ballots by March 10th. We're not playing around here. We can't mess around because we know just how nervous the Democratic Party establishment is getting and the corporate media is getting, the health insurance companies are getting, the fossil fuel companies are getting, they're nervous about how well Bernie is doing. So this is no joke. We need to go all out for this primary election campaign. This is a rare moment in history where each one of us can have a real impact. We can truly make history in these next 4 weeks. Seattle Democratic Socialists for Bernie can be your go-to place for these next 4 weeks of the campaign so we can hit the doors talking with our neighbors in an organized way. Many DSA activists have been relentlessly organizing for Bernie to win this Washington State primary. And people like our next speaker, Mel Amaral, have been preparing this campaign for months. Mel is the co-chair of the DSA for Bernie campaign in Seattle. She's also a member of the local leadership body of DSA Seattle, the local council. And DSA for Bernie is ready to plug you in and get going. There is a table at the end of this area right back here where you can get plugged in to sign up for the DSA for Bernie campaign. And there's no experience needed. If you've never been door knocking before, don't worry about it. We will pair you up with an experienced person who's done it before who can show you how to do it. And despite any fears you might have, it's actually really fun and a great experience to go out and door knocking and get out the vote for Bernie. So please join me in welcoming Mel and thanking her for all her preparation and leadership.
Hi everyone, I'm Mel. I'm a member of the Democratic Socialists of America, and I'm chair of our Bernie Sanders Committee. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what we've been up to. So we kicked off our independent campaign for Bernie in June, and since then we have knocked on thousands of doors. We have been running political education events, tablings, we have had debate watch parties, all kinds of great stuff. Our members have been organizing their friends and neighbors. Our union members have been building support for Bernie Sanders endorsement within their unions, which is fantastic. Myself and other comrades have gone to Iowa and are going to New Hampshire. We have been working our asses off because we know that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to build an organized mass movement of the multiracial working class. A movement that will outlast any single campaign and transform society. So this last week we got a little taste of what happens when you go toe-to-toe with the establishment. The Democratic Party marshaled all the forces of darkness against our beautiful boy Bernie Sanders to deny him a decisive victory in Iowa. But guess what though? We won anyway! But even though we won, and we definitely won. Yes. The whole Iowa meltdown really illustrates a larger point about the limitations of organizing within the Democratic Party. So right now, Bernie Sanders' campaign is acting as a kind of de facto workers' party. They have an independent fundraising base. They have a pretty robust media propaganda arm. But the Bernie Sanders campaign is going to end. It's either going to end after this primary, or if we do our jobs, it's going to end in the White House. But either way, it's going to end, and we need to be building organizations like DSA so that we can be laying the groundwork for what happens next. I believe that we need in this country an independent working class party with a clear platform and a coherent message. I believe that this is achievable, and I believe that it's not going to happen unless we organize. So I have an appeal to you. If you have been watching from the sidelines as a working class movement blossoms in America for the first time in 100 years, now is the time for you to stand up and take part. If you are tired of feeling anxious and discouraged and helpless about the state of this country and the state of this planet, I can promise you there is no better cure than banding together with thousands, millions of people just like you and taking concrete steps to build a better world. If you have a ton of energy and you want to put it to good use, but you're not sure what to do, our experienced organizers are going to train you into hardened class warriors. So please join us in this fight. Visit our table in the back. We have a ton of stuff happening. We have a canvas happening tomorrow. Tuesday we have a phone bank, which is always really, really fun. You get to show up and eat snacks with people and make calls, and in between the calls you can gossip about the highly original views that you will hear on the other end of the line. And then the following weekend, we have not one, but 2 canvases. One on Saturday and one on Sunday. So again, if you've never canvassed before, no big deal. We'll train you and we'll go out with a buddy. And it's a lot of fun. So this is how we win, guys. And never forget, the billionaires and the political establishment that serve them are strong. But as we have seen time and time again, when we stand together, we are stronger. Thank you everybody for coming out tonight. And solidarity.
This is about to be a sing-along. Okay. I love sing-alongs. But I'm just out here to announce that we have collectively raised $2,400. And it turns out tickets to California are just like 200, so that's pretty good. So if you still want to donate, people by the door can help you out. And then I'm just going to pass the mic off to one of our MCs, Molly, who's going to take it away.
Hi again. Before I introduce our next performer, I just wanted to plug our neighbors next door at Delish Ethiopian Cuisine. They wanted to let y'all know that they're huge Bernie supporters. And their food is super bomb, and we're gonna have a little after party. We can all like hang out there. I don't actually, maybe order food. I'm not actually sure what's happening, but let's go there afterwards. Delish Ethiopian Cuisine. Okay, so our next performer, I feel very honored to introduce. Frank Bill is a multi-talented rapper, producer, and Minnesota-born storyteller. He has produced for local Seattle artists such as Do Normal. His 2019 album, Out the Window, has been featured on KXP and is the perfect moody backdrop for the Seattle winter. Yeah, we're so thrilled to have Frank Bill blessing our stage tonight. Welcome.
Hey guys, really quickly, get the stuff set up.
While he's setting up,